People who have had it with the homeless crisis in downtown Phoenix went before a judge to plead their case today. Business owners and residents suing the city of Phoenix over that large encampment near the state capitol known as the Zone.
Every summer in Phoenix, the heat doesn't just break records, it breaks people. Inside cars and RVs, temperatures rise past 140 degrees. And for thousands of Americans, that metal box is the last shelter they have. No AC, no escape, no safety net. Today we expose how poverty and heat are becoming a death sentence. Phoenix is no longer just hot. Summer temperatures regularly exceed 115 degrees Fahrenheit, with heat waves pushing pavement temperatures above 150 degrees. Inside an RV or car, temperatures can climb to 140 degrees or higher within 30 minutes, even with cracked windows. At those levels, the human body begins shutting down. Organs overheat, blood pressure collapses, and heat stroke can kill in under an hour. In 2025, Phoenix recorded more than 55 consecutive days over 110 degrees, shattering historic records. Climate scientists warn that by 2030, this could become the new normal. For RV dwellers, this means weeks where survival depends entirely on access to shade, water, and electricity, resources most simply do not have. Many homeless individuals try escaping the heat by driving at night and hiding during the day. Others spend hours in libraries, buses, or fast food restaurants until closing time. When those doors shut, they return to vehicles that have absorbed heat all day long. Emergency rooms report spikes in heat-related admissions every summer. Ambulance calls for dehydration, fainting, and cardiac distress rise sharply during extreme heat alerts. For people without stable shelter, Phoenix's climate has become a slow-moving natural disaster, one that repeats every year and claims more lives. Behind these statistics are real people, families struggling to survive in conditions that were never meant for human habitation. Phoenix has quietly become one of the deadliest places in America for anyone without housing. Maricopa County has become the epicenter of heat-related deaths in America. In 2023, officials confirmed 645 heat-associated deaths, the highest number ever recorded. In 2024, preliminary data showed another increase, with hundreds more cases under investigation. By 2026, public health experts warn the annual toll could exceed 700 deaths. More than 70% of these deaths involve people experiencing homelessness or unstable housing. Many victims were found in vehicles, tents, or outdoor encampments. Some were discovered days later, after extreme heat had accelerated decomposition, making identification difficult. Medical examiners report that most victims had no access to air conditioning. Many had underlying health conditions like heart disease, diabetes, or kidney failure, conditions made deadly by dehydration and overheating. Others were elderly, isolated, and physically unable to seek help when temperatures became dangerous. The county spends millions of dollars each year on emergency response, hospital care, and body recovery. Yet prevention funding remains severely limited. Cooling programs receive only a fraction of what is actually needed to save lives. Heat deaths are often underreported in official statistics. If someone collapses from heart failure during a heat wave, the death certificate may list cardiac arrest instead of heat exposure. This statistical gap hides the true scale of the crisis. Behind every number is a name, a family, and a life cut short, not by crime or addiction, but simply by temperature and poverty combined. For thousands of people living in RVs around Phoenix, air conditioning is a luxury they simply cannot afford. Running an RV air conditioning unit requires either shore power at a campground, a portable generator, or expensive battery systems. Hookups at RV parks typically cost between $700 and $1,200 per month, far beyond reach for most homeless vehicle dwellers. Portable generators cost anywhere from $500 to $1,500 initially, plus fuel expenses that can exceed $200 monthly during summer. Solar power systems capable of running air conditioning often cost between $3,000 and $7,000 to install. Most people living in RVs simply do not have access to that kind of money. As a result, many rely on small battery-powered fans, cracked windows, and reflective sunshades or blankets. But when outside temperatures exceed 115 degrees, these minimal measures barely help at all. Heat accumulates inside metal and fiberglass shells, effectively turning RVs into ovens. Emergency responders have found people unconscious in overheated rigs, suffering from heat stroke and organ failure. Some never regain consciousness. Others survive but suffer permanent damage to kidneys, heart, and brain function. Because many park illegally in neighborhoods or public lots, they avoid opening doors or windows too much, fearing complaints or police attention. This fear traps deadly heat inside their only shelter. What manufacturers once marketed as freedom living has become a deadly trap. Without electrical power, RVs in Phoenix. Summers are not shelters at all. They are slow-burning furnaces. Phoenix and Maricopa County operate cooling centers during extreme heat emergencies. In theory, these facilities provide air conditioning, drinking water, and rest for vulnerable populations. In reality, they reach only a small fraction of those who desperately need them. Most centers operate during limited daytime hours, often from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Many close completely at night, precisely when vehicles remain dangerously hot inside. Some facilities are located miles away from major RV clusters and homeless encampments, requiring long walks through triple-digit heat. Public transportation becomes unreliable during extreme weather events. Bus shelters often lack adequate shade. Missed connections during heat waves can quickly become life-threatening situations. Many cooling centers prohibit pets, large bags, or sleeping on premises. For people living in RVs, leaving belongings unattended outside risks total loss through theft. Some avoid centers entirely out of fear of losing everything they own. Capacity presents another serious problem. During declared heat emergencies, centers frequently fill to maximum capacity. Staff shortages and funding limitations restrict the ability to expand services when demand surges. Language barriers, untreated mental illness, and deep distrust of government institutions also keep vulnerable people away. Some homeless individuals do not even know cooling centers exist or where to find them. Officials may publicly announce cooling availability during press conferences, but on the ground, thousands of people remain dangerously exposed. The system looks effective on paper. On the streets, it fails people daily. Phoenix has become one of the fastest growing and most expensive housing markets in the entire country. Since 2020, average rental prices have increased by 35 to 45%, with some neighborhoods experiencing even higher spikes that have displaced long-term residents. A typical one-bedroom apartment that cost $900 monthly in 2019 now often rents for between $1,400 and $1,600. Meanwhile, wages have risen only about 15 to 18% during the same period. This growing gap is actively pushing working families into homelessness at alarming rates. In 2024 alone, Maricopa County recorded over 85,000 eviction filings. Many cases involve tenants living just one missed paycheck away from losing their housing. Unexpected medical bills, necessary car repairs, or reduced work hours can trigger immediate displacement from rental housing. Once evicted, renters struggle tremendously to re-enter the conventional housing market. Poor credit scores, steep application fees, and strict income requirements create nearly insurmountable barriers. Landlords routinely require income equal to 3 times monthly rent, an impossible standard for many full-time workers. As traditional housing becomes unreachable, people increasingly turn to RVs, vans, and cars as last resort emergency housing. What begins as a supposedly temporary solution quickly becomes permanent reality. Phoenix's housing boom has created enormous wealth for real estate investors and developers. But for tens of thousands of working families, it has created widespread homelessness under the scorching desert sun, transforming economic displacement into a daily survival crisis. One of the fastest-growing segments among Phoenix's homeless population is the working homeless. These are people with regular jobs, including warehouse workers, retail clerks, caregivers, security guards, and delivery drivers who still cannot afford basic housing. In Maricopa County, more than 40% of homeless adults report having regular employment. Many earn between $14 and $19 per hour, which sounds reasonable until rental costs are considered. At $16 hourly, working full-time generates about $2,560 monthly before taxes. After taxes, transportation, expenses, food costs, and healthcare, there is often nothing remaining for $1,400 rent. Vehicle living becomes the only viable option. RVs offer privacy and storage space, allowing workers to shower at gyms, charge phones at work, and appear normal to employers and coworkers. But this lifestyle remains incredibly fragile. If an RV breaks down mechanically, gets towed by authorities, or receives expensive tickets, a person can lose both shelter and transportation in a single day. Missing work due to vehicle problems leads to job loss, creating a devastating downward spiral. Many hide their living situation out of deep shame. Co-workers often have no idea that the person working beside them slept in a parking lot the previous night. This silent crisis demonstrates that homelessness in Phoenix is no longer primarily about unemployment or lack of effort. It is fundamentally about an economy where full-time work no longer guarantees basic survival or housing security. Phoenix has dramatically intensified enforcement against vehicle dwelling and outdoor camping in recent years. New municipal ordinances restrict where RVs can legally park, how long they can remain stationary, and what conditions are considered acceptable. By 2025, the city increased funding for encampment sweeps and vehicle enforcement by millions of dollars annually. Police officers and code enforcement officials regularly issue notices requiring people to relocate within 24 to 72 hours or face penalties. Failure to comply can result in fines ranging from $250 to $1,000, towing fees between $800 and $2,500, plus daily impound storage costs. For someone living paycheck to paycheck, this financial burden is absolutely devastating. When RVs are towed to impound lots, personal belongings are frequently lost forever. Medications, identification documents, family photos, and work tools simply disappear. Successfully recovering impounded vehicles is rare due to accumulating fees. Enforcement crackdowns push people out of visible public areas into dangerous locations like desert edges, industrial zones, and floodplains, places completely without water access, shade, or emergency services. City officials argue that enforcement protects established neighborhoods and property values. But extensive research consistently shows that constant forced displacement increases mortality rates, serious illness, and overall public service costs. Instead of actually solving homelessness, these punitive policies simply scatter it across wider geographic areas. They transform basic survival into a daily game of hide-and-seek with authorities, a game that many vulnerable people eventually lose with fatal consequences. In the Sonoran desert environment, access to water literally means the difference between life and death. Yet thousands of RV dwellers throughout Phoenix struggle to access safe drinking water every single day. Most public restrooms and water fountains close completely at night. Businesses increasingly limit restroom use to paying customers only. Many RV residents rely entirely on purchasing bottled water, spending between $5 and $10 daily, or $150 to $300 monthly, simply to stay minimally hydrated. Without consistent water access, chronic dehydration becomes extremely common. Medical providers report alarming spikes in kidney failure, urinary tract infections, and dangerous electrolyte imbalances among homeless patients seeking emergency care. Some people refill containers at irrigation spigots, construction sites, or public parks, often illegally and risking citations. Others attempt collecting rainwater, which proves both unreliable and potentially unsafe for consumption. In 2024, community outreach groups reported distributing over 5 million bottles of water throughout Maricopa County. Demand continues rising dramatically every year as temperatures increase and homeless populations grow. Water scarcity is significantly worsened by Arizona's long-term drought conditions and shrinking Colorado River water supplies. Municipal water systems logically prioritize residential and commercial users. Informal residents living in vehicles are consistently last in line. When clean water runs out, people are forced to ration severely. They skip showers, reduce food intake, and limit physical movement. This progressive dehydration weakens immune systems and dramatically increases vulnerability to heat-related illness and death. Living in extreme heat conditions rapidly accelerates illness and disease progression. Inside overheated vehicles, the human body works overtime attempting to regulate core temperature, placing enormous stress on every major organ system. Extreme heat significantly worsens cardiovascular disease. It thickens blood, raises heart rate dangerously, and dramatically increases stroke risk. Hospital admission data shows heart-related emergencies rise between 20 and 30% during sustained heat waves. Diabetics face particularly high danger in hot vehicles. Insulin medication degrades rapidly in high temperatures. Without reliable refrigeration, medication becomes completely ineffective, leading to dangerous blood sugar spikes and potentially fatal complications. Kidney disease is widespread among homeless populations living in vehicles. Chronic dehydration causes progressive kidney damage, often eventually leading to dialysis dependence and dramatically shortened life expectancy. Mental illness also worsens significantly in extreme heat. Chronic sleep deprivation, constant physical discomfort, and persistent fear trigger severe anxiety, paranoia, and clinical depression. Mental health crisis calls increase dramatically during prolonged heat periods. Many avoid seeking necessary medical care due to lack of health insurance. In Arizona, nearly 18% of homeless adults remain completely uninsured. Overcrowded emergency rooms become their only healthcare option, which proves both extremely expensive and often inadequate. Medical outreach teams consistently report that untreated heat injuries frequently become permanent disabilities. Survivors may suffer irreversible memory loss, chronic weakness, and permanent organ damage that affects them for remaining years. Vehicle living in Phoenix is not merely uncomfortable. It represents a slow-motion medical emergency that compounds year after year. Older adults are among the most vulnerable populations within Phoenix's RV homeless community. Many survive on extremely fixed incomes from Social Security retirement benefits or disability payments that have not kept pace with inflation. The average Social Security payment in 2025 was approximately $1,900 monthly. After paying for food, prescription medications, and vehicle fuel, very little remains available for actual housing costs. As a direct result, thousands of senior citizens live in RVs despite experiencing significant declining health. Many suffer from arthritis, heart disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and serious mobility issues that make vehicle living extremely difficult. Extreme heat affects older bodies far more severely than younger people. Natural sweating mechanisms weaken significantly with advancing age. Common medications interfere with normal temperature regulation. Dangerous dehydration happens much faster in elderly bodies. Disabled individuals face very similar risks in hot vehicles. Mobility impairments make reaching distant cooling centers nearly impossible. Essential medical equipment requires electrical power that most simply lack. In Maricopa County, over 25% of all heat-related deaths involve people over age 60. Many of these victims were living in parked vehicles when they died. These are retired workers, military veterans, and former productive community members, people who paid into social systems throughout their entire working lives. Their presence dying on streets exposes catastrophic failure of social safety nets. When elderly people die alone in parking lots, it signals complete systemic collapse, not individual personal failure or poor choices. Phoenix's emergency shelter system is overwhelmed far beyond designed capacity. On any given night, more than 8,000 people throughout Maricopa County experience homelessness. Yet emergency shelters can serve only approximately 40 to 45% of them. Major facilities like Central Arizona Shelter Services and Human Services Campus operate at near full capacity throughout the entire year. During summer heat emergencies, demand typically spikes by 25 to 35%, but available bed numbers barely change at all. Many shelters impose strict operational rules, including mandatory curfews, sobriety requirements, extremely limited storage space, and rigid check-in times. For RV dwellers maintaining jobs, these inflexible rules make shelter use completely impossible. Families are frequently separated by gender-based sleeping arrangements. Married couples may be split apart. Pets are usually completely prohibited, forcing people to choose between shelter and beloved animals. Wait lists for available beds can stretch for weeks or even months. During that extended waiting time, vulnerable people remain dangerously exposed to life-threatening extreme temperatures. Funding remains chronically unstable. Federal and state grants fluctuate unpredictably from year to year. High staff burnout leads to constant turnover and inconsistent service quality. Shelters were originally designed for short-term crisis intervention, not managing permanent widespread displacement. Yet many residents end up staying 6 months or considerably longer. The entire system functions like an overcrowded emergency room for housing, always filled beyond capacity, chronically underfunded, and forced to ration inadequate care among desperate people. Family homelessness throughout Phoenix has risen sharply since 2020. School. Districts report that more than 18,000 students in Maricopa County experience some form of housing instability each year, a number that continues growing. Many of these children sleep nightly in cars, vans, or RVs, with parents who are still working regular jobs. Parents strategically park near schools to reduce commute stress and carefully hide their desperate situation from authorities. Inside cramped vehicles, children struggle to sleep in oppressive heat. Poor quality rest directly affects memory formation, attention span, and emotional regulation. Teachers consistently report higher absenteeism rates and significant learning delays among homeless students. Parents spend hours daily managing basic survival logistics, including finding showers, food, clean water, and safe overnight parking, leaving very little quality time for bonding or adequate rest. Summer months prove especially dangerous for vehicle-dwelling families. Pediatric hospitals report noticeable increases in dehydration cases and heat exhaustion among homeless children seeking emergency care. Some families rotate continuously between relatives' homes, cheap motels, and vehicles. This constant instability severely disrupts normal childhood development and creates lasting trauma. Many families avoid emergency shelters due to legitimate safety fears or lack of privacy. Others fear losing custody of children if authorities become involved and discover their living situation. Living in a vehicle is not simply uncomfortable for young children. It fundamentally reshapes childhood around constant stress, forced secrecy, and daily survival struggles that no child should ever experience. Dozens of dedicated nonprofit organizations operate throughout Phoenix working to prevent heat deaths. Groups like Heat Relief Network, St. Vincent de Paul, and numerous local mutual aid teams distribute bottled water, sunscreen, hats, and cooling kits. In 2024, outreach organizations collectively handed out more than 6 million bottles of water and thousands of cooling supplies to vulnerable populations. Yet critical shortages persist every single summer as temperatures rise. Most organizations operate on limited donations and short-term grants. Annual operating budgets are often under $500,000, absolutely tiny compared to the massive scale of need across the county. Dedicated volunteers drive hundreds of miles weekly to reach remote RV clusters and desert encampments. Many volunteers use personal vehicles and pay for gasoline themselves out of pocket. Medical outreach teams provide basic wound care, blood pressure checks, and referrals to additional services. But they fundamentally cannot offer long-term housing solutions. During extreme heat alerts, emergency calls for help spike by 40 to 50% or more. Limited resources are quickly depleted despite best efforts. Nonprofit organizations often fill critical gaps left completely empty by inadequate government systems. Without their tireless efforts, annual death counts would be dramatically far higher. Yet these groups are stretched dangerously thin. Compassion and volunteer effort alone simply cannot replace proper public infrastructure and adequate funding. The work continues, but sustainability remains uncertain as climate change makes Phoenix increasingly deadly for vulnerable populations. Phoenix is warming faster than most other major cities across the United States. Since 1970, average summer temperatures have risen by nearly 4 degrees Fahrenheit. Heat waves are becoming longer, hotter, and significantly more frequent. Urban heat islands, caused by extensive asphalt, concrete surfaces, and lack of trees, raise neighborhood temperatures by 10 to 15 degrees above surrounding natural desert areas. Nighttime temperatures now frequently stay above 90 degrees, preventing human bodies from cooling adequately during sleep. This dramatically increases mortality risk for vulnerable populations. Climate models predict that by 2035, Phoenix may experience over 70 days annually, with temperatures exceeding 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Electrical grids face increasing strain during peak demand. Widespread blackouts during extreme heat waves would prove absolutely catastrophic for RV dwellers and homeless populations. Water shortages, persistent drought conditions, and declining river flows threaten long-term regional sustainability. Municipal planners are increasingly concerned. Wealthier residents adapt through solar panels, backup generators, and well-insulated air-conditioned homes. Poor and homeless populations cannot. Climate change is rapidly transforming housing inequality into a stark survival divide. In Phoenix today, temperature now determines who lives and who dies. The city faces a fundamental question about its future viability as a place for human habitation. Without massive intervention, Phoenix could become largely uninhabitable for anyone without significant wealth and resources to manage extreme heat. Living under constant heat stress fundamentally reshapes the human mind. Chronic exposure to extreme temperatures increases irritability, clinical depression, and measurable cognitive decline over time. Research studies show suicide attempts rise significantly during prolonged heat waves. Crisis hotlines throughout Arizona report summer call volume increases exceeding 20% compared to cooler months. RV dwellers live in constant alert mode, continuously watching for police, managing oppressive heat, and protecting belongings from theft. This creates chronic anxiety that never subsides. Sleep deprivation is extremely common. Interior vehicle temperatures often remain above 90 degrees throughout the night. Poor sleep quality significantly worsens existing mental illness. Many people suffer from untreated post-traumatic stress disorder stemming from past evictions, domestic abuse, or medical trauma that remains unaddressed. Mental health services remain severely limited. Fewer than 1 in 4 homeless adults throughout Arizona receive any regular counseling or psychiatric care. Substance use often becomes a desperate coping mechanism, further worsening overall health risks and complicating medical treatment. When people appear unstable or irrational on the streets, it is frequently the direct result of environmental torture, not personal failure or character flaws. The combination of heat, stress, and inadequate mental health support creates a mental health crisis within the larger homelessness crisis. Recovery becomes nearly impossible without stable housing that provides safety, temperature control, and basic dignity. Breaking this cycle requires comprehensive mental health services integrated with permanent supportive housing solutions that address root causes. Despite the severity of this crisis, practical solutions exist and have been successfully tested. Pilot programs throughout Arizona show genuine promise for meaningful change. Safe parking sites with basic security, bathrooms, and electrical hookups cost approximately $15 to $25 per person nightly, far cheaper than repeated emergency room visits or incarceration. Micro-housing units cost between $20,000 and $35,000 each to construct, compared to $300,000 or more for traditional apartment construction. Utility-supported RV parks can provide essential power and water access at relatively low cost to residents while preventing deaths. Permanent supportive housing programs reduce overall public spending by $10,000 to $20,000 per person annually through decreased emergency services. Some cities have begun implementing zoning reforms and modular housing projects that show measurable results. The barrier to implementing solutions is not technical feasibility or lack of knowledge. It is political will and funding priorities. Without sustained intervention, heat-related deaths will continue rising as climate change accelerates. Hope in 2026 means choosing prevention over punishment, housing over handcuffs, and basic dignity over systematic neglect. It means making a collective decision that no human being should die simply because they are poor in an increasingly hot city. The resources exist. The solutions are known. What remains is choosing whether Phoenix will act before more people die preventable deaths. People are dying in parked vehicles in America, and we're acting like it's normal. If this story shook you, tell me what you think in the comments. Do you believe this crisis is being ignored? And if you want more real stories like this, hit subscribe and stay with us.